Hey guys, welcome to Tech Approved. So with PS5 and Xbox Series X around the corner, and both of these two new consoles saying that they'll be able to achieve 4K at 120 Hz, which is pretty insane that we're at that point now, I decided to make a video on some of the TVs, the best options for TVs, and my opinions on them, and which TVs you should get if you're considering a new TV. Now, you don't need a new TV for these consoles to work, and I don't even expect most games to run at 4K 120. But in the case that you do want to test out games, or you're actually intending to play games in 4K 120, it might be a good idea to take a look at some of these new TVs. So first off, let's take a look at some of LG's listings. So from LG, we have their new Nano series with the Nano 85, the Nano 90, and the Nano 91, which are all $1,000 sets and cost around $1,000, and are good alternatives to the OLED ones because you won't have to pay as much, and the difference in picture quality isn't crazy different. And honestly, if you intend to use the TV for quite longer, it might be a better idea to get a LCD panel, LCD TV, as you don't have to worry about burn-in. And I know burn-in isn't really a big issue anymore, but because it's still a organic panel, it can degrade in picture quality, lose a little bit of its brightness after years of use. So if you intend to use it for over 5 years or so, and maybe saving the money could be a benefit for you, these Nano series are actually quite good, and I highly recommend taking a look at them. But if you really have the money for it and you want to get the best, the LG C10 is a very amazing option, and you can save a little bit of money with the B10, which has a little bit worse processing, upscaling processor. But really, if upscaling doesn't matter too much to you, which I don't think you'll have to worry about with these new consoles, the B10 might be another great option. Now, all of LG's lineup TVs, that, like I said today, the Nano 85, all the way up to the GX or the G10, all support 120 Hz on their TVs. Now, for the B10 and the Nano series, it only supports it on 2 of the ports, but on the C10 and the G10, it supports it on all of them. These ports also support VRR and ALLM, and they also have eARC on one port on each of the TVs. So you can also use a Dolby Atmos soundbar if you'd like to. Now from Samsung did something quite interesting this year with kind of taking last year's TVs, making them the same TVs and charging more for them. So like this year's Q70 is basically last year's Q60. So it's really weird, and Samsung TVs still are a great option, as QLED is an amazing option, but it's not one of the best as they are costing quite a bit and you're not getting much. So the first one that I would say that you can start at is the Q70. And the reason for this is because the Q70 actually supports 120 Hz. All the TVs I'm going to talk about today are going to be supporting 120 Hz at 4K, besides a few that I'll talk about, but mainly 120 Hz 4K TVs. So the Q70T is another great option that starts at $1,200. This TV also supports 120 Hz, and it supports VRR and auto low latency mode also. And it also has eARC support. Samsung hasn't told us which ports exactly support this yet, so we haven't found out that yet, but this TV does support it. Next up, there's the Q80T, and the advantage in the Q80T is that it's a much brighter set than the Q70T, and it also has full array local dimming, unlike the Q70T that has edge lit. So edge lit basically means you won't get as much better contrast ratio and stuff. Your blacks won't be as good, and really, if you want a better viewing experience, you want better contrast, the Q80T is much better with full array local dimming. And the Q80T starts at $1,700 for the 65. All the prices that I'm giving you today are all for the 65s. So next up, there's the Q90T. The Q90T isn't that much, and it doesn't cost that much more than the Q80T. But for what you're getting, if a bright TV matters to you, OLEDs don't get very bright. OLEDs can really only hit 800 nit peak brightness, usually not much higher than that. This Q90T is insanely bright and gets around 1500 nits, which is absolutely insane. If you intend to have your TV beside massive windows and stuff and you want to be able to see it really well, this might be a good option. This TV starts at $1,900, so $200 more than the Q80T, but if brightness really matters to you, this is a good set, as its performance for a regular LCD panel is actually quite good, and it can actually rival the LG series. And they all also support same 120 Hz and stuff, so you'll be good to go on that. Now, if you wanted to get an 8K set, which I don't really recommend getting an 8K TV yet, even though Sony and Microsoft are saying their consoles can support 8K, you're not really going to be playing any games in 8K unless you want to watch movies in 8K. I guess you could, but Samsung has your Q800T, which is an 8K set that starts at $2,300 for the 65. But honestly, I wouldn't recommend getting an 8K TV if you're looking at a 65. Maybe you're looking at 65, but anything below 65, really 8K won't make too much of a big difference. But if it's a 65 above, I mean, if it's like an 82 inch, you're looking at an 82 inch 4K, it might be worth getting an 8K set, as obviously your picture quality degrades as your screen size increases. So that's when a bigger TV with 8K would make sense. 8K doesn't make too much sense with a smaller set. Now, next up we have Sony. So Sony has their OLED series, which uses the LG panels, but those aren't, I mean, I won't recommend buying those because they do cost more than the LG sets. They use LG panels, so it might just be better off to get the LG TVs. But Sony does have an amazing LED TV, and that's the Sony X900H. The Sony X900H is $1,000 for the 65 inch. This TV supports 120 Hz on HDMI 3 and 4, and it also is going to be getting support for VRR and auto latency mode. It also has eARC support, so that's also been great for people who want to use a Dolby Atmos certified soundbar. Now, the reason why this is such a great set is because its picture quality rivals stuff like the LG C10. And the fact that it costs almost $1,300 less than the LG C10 means you can basically get two Sony X900H TVs for less than an LG C10, which is insane. And this TV really has its own in that league. So really, if you want to save a little bit, you want to make sure that your TV will last, this is a good option, as you won't have to worry about OLED, and it's honestly a good set. So very, very good TV, and if you want something good that will work with PS5 or Xbox Series X, take a look at the Sony X900H. Next up, you have the TCL 6 series. This is a pretty cheap set. I've seen the 55s go for like 600 and stuff, but the 65 is going to be 900, and the 55 I've seen for like 600. But anyways, we're talking about 65, so that's 900. Now, for $100 more, the X900H might be the better TV and might be the one to get, as it's coming from a known brand. And I'm not saying TCL is on a known brand, but I mean, when it comes to quality, TCL isn't the quality brand. They're more like a cheaper option to choose from. Not saying their TVs are bad, but might be a better choice to go off with the Sony. Anyways, back to the TCL. So it supports 4K 60. It does have a 120 Hz panel, except it doesn't actually support 4K at 120 FPS. So you can do 1440p at 120, which kind of makes sense because as far as we've seen, none of these games on the new Series X or PS5 are really hitting 4K at 120 Hz. They're more hitting 1440p with a dynamic resolution and then 120 Hz. You're not going to really see 4K at 120 Hz. I think you're probably going to see 1080p dynamic resolutions and stuff, because ray tracing and stuff really takes off. So you're going to have like 4K 30 still with ray tracing, and maybe without ray tracing 4K 60, which honestly is still quite good for most people. And finally we have Vizio. Vizio, they don't really sell a lot of TVs in a lot of countries, but they have their OLED TV, the Vizio OLED TV. That's $2,000, and well, it is a pretty good set. Coming from Vizio, I don't know if it's worth $2,000. Then they also have their P series, which is one that I would say might be a better deal. But since that's not an OLED and it still costs more than the Sony, it might be worth going with the Sony or even the Samsung Q70T. So Maybe Vizio and TCL, well, they do make good TVs. Unless you're looking at one of the smaller sizes, they usually sell the smaller sizes for much cheaper. Like this TCL 6 series in the 55 is quite cheap, so if you want a 55, that might be a good option. But otherwise, I mean, the best TVs really are the Sony X900H, the Samsung Q80T, and the LG C10. As the X900H and the Q80T both support full array local dimming, so you can get that good movie performance, and along with the C10 and the B10, which are just amazing TVs, but as they don't get very bright, it's hard to recommend them to someone who needs a bright set or someone who intends to use a TV for quite long. Now, all of these TVs are good sets, and really all of them are going to work well with the new PS5 and Series X. If you're looking at other TVs, some things to watch out for that are probably going to be good is stuff like HDR. You want TVs with good HDR, such as TCL 6 series doesn't have the best HDR. But something like the Samsung TVs, especially the Q90T, because it gets so bright, its HDR performance is amazing, and it's one of the best HDR TVs out there. And the LG OLED, obviously a great set for the perfect contrast, obviously because it's an OLED, is another great option, and I've seen that it's also a very good pair with a new PS5 and Xbox Series X due to its great performance and low latency. And the X900H, another great set, but due to the fact that Sony says that there's an update that's going to enable 4K 120 and the rest of the features, I'd recommend waiting for that TV if you're interested in it, or making sure that you have an ability to return it or something, just so Sony's probably going to release it, but I mean, I'd just be a little careful with that one, as we don't know when that's going to happen. But I have seen that the 4K 120 is coming to a lot of TVs now, and the VRR and ALLM is coming very soon, as they're waiting for it to be certified. And yeah, that's basically it. Those are great TVs. I wouldn't recommend getting a new 1080p TV, because really 4K TVs are quite cheap now. And if you're looking at a monitor, you can usually find a good monitor with decent HDR for around $500 or $600. And yeah, so that's basically it. Those are the main TV sets that are going to be good for the PS5 and Xbox Series X. And if you guys want to learn more about the PS5 and Series X, I'll be happy to make more videos, and just comment down below what you want to learn. I'll do my best to make them. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you liked today's video, please be sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, that's it.